To find a left libertarian society, we don't have to look to another time or another country. We can find it here in America. Democratic schools have all the hallmarks of a libertarian society. Much like the government and the private sector, our compulsory public educational system is authoritarian in nature. All decisions are made at the top and flow down. Children are perceived to be empty vessels to be filled by what the state deems to be fit. They are to be disciplined, numbered, broken, and humiliated into obedience and molded for society. Before I discuss democratic schooling, it is essential to understand where and how public education came to be. We have to go back to 1806 when the Prussians were defeated by Napoleon's troops. After their defeat, the Prussians started to become introspective about their own institutions. This introspection led to the conclusion that Prussian pride and power could only be restored by restructuring that system. A strategy was devised, which the Prussian government would set up forced government educational system, which would turn out well-disciplined students who would follow orders without questioning authority. To accomplish this feat, the goal of educating children became a national priority infused with strategies adapted to turn out a national workforce rather than an educated citizenry. Every step in the education process was calculated to offer authority figures the least amount of trouble and consequently train a well-disciplined, albeit docile citizen. One of the main proponents of the system was Johann Finch. As he eloquently described it, the school must fashion the person, and fashion him in such a way that he simply cannot will otherwise than what you wish him to will. In another quote, he says, "Education should aim at destroying free will, so that after the pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable throughout the rest of their lives of thinking and acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. When the technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for more than one generation will be able to control its subjects securely, without the need of armies or policemen." The Prussian system taught duty, discipline, subjugation to authority, and the ability to follow orders. The best educated, meaning the most docile students, were rewarded by serving loyally in the upper crust of the wicked monarch, while the insubordinate students joined the working class. By the late 1800s, men in the United States, including Horace Mann, the father of public education, heard about the successes of the Prussian system. He, along with others, traveled to Germany to investigate how the educational process worked. Upon their return to the United States, they lobbied heavily to have the Prussian model adopted. Soon, the methods of the Prussian educational system swept through America. It is no coincidence that the Prussian system seems familiar to Americans, and that it demanded compulsory attendance, national training for teachers, national testing for all students, national curriculum set for each grade, and mandatory kindergarten. Between 1880 and 1920, private power grew larger than the state, and corporate leaders began to criticize schools for failing to respond to the newly industrialized, centralized, and increasingly integrated world economy. They sought centralization and efficiency in the public educational system by lobbying Congress. As always, the private sector prevailed. Today, public schools are treated as engines of economic development to lure business to a particular city or state, so corporate and local political leaders cooperate in their governance and redesign. In short, school policy has become labor policy. The similarities between our own education and the Prussian still reverberates through time. Much like our counterpart, the obedient student is allowed to join the managing class, while the student who critically thinks is weeded out of the system and left to join the working force. When students are taught to mindlessly read information and then regurgitate that knowledge on the next test, they have learned nothing. Education should be the development of independent and critical thought. Education should teach humans to live better, learn more, and grow more to cope with the world without constantly being bribed, coaxed, bullied, threatened, humiliated, and hurt. They should not be set endlessly against each other in a race which all but a few must lose. Students should not be constantly made to feel incompetent, stupid, untrustworthy, guilty, fearful, and ashamed. Their interests, concerns, and enthusiasms should not be ignored or scorned, and they should be encouraged, and if they wish, helped to work with each other, to learn from each other, and to think, talk, write, and read about the things that most excite and interest them. In short, they should explore the world in their own way, and in as many ways as possible, thereby direct and control their own lives. The accumulation of history's greatest knowledge should be personified in our children through their education. They should be the ones redesigning a new society which could have work to do which is varied and interesting, that challenges and rewards their skill and intelligence. which they could do well and take pride in doing well, over which they could exercise some control, and whose ends and purposes they could understand and respect. Today, very few people feel this way about their work. Only a small number of artists, artisans, specialists, professionals, and a few others. Beyond this, all people should have an opportunity to feel, as very few people do now, that what they think, want, say, and do would make a real difference in their lives and the lives of people around them. Their politics, like their work, would be meaningful. Their elected officials would be public servants, not petty kings and emperors. They would shape and control the society they live in, instead of being shaped and controlled by it. A left-libertarian society should facilitate all these goals. I use the democratic school as an example of how this society might look, because even children are capable of running such a simple system. I also wanted to parallel how, on a micro level, a left-libertarian system might look before I move on to macro examples. Democratic schools are based on the philosophy that children want to learn, not that they have to be bribed and coerced into learning. The teachers are there only for assistance, to help cultivate the child's inner curiosity. The schools are democratic, which means all decisions are made by the students. One person, one vote. They decide the school's budgets. They decide what they want to learn. They make the rules. They are the discipliners and the educators.
Not an easy life being here. I think that's completely false. And I don't think it can change that much. My day-to-day life here was incredibly difficult because I was given this enormous amount of trust from my parents and from the community here to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do with whoever I was. I was left to myself, which was terribly intimidating, since I don't know who I am.
You have one person at the front telling all the people who aren't in the front what to think and what to understand and how to think about things. And I don't think that really works in terms of teaching eloquence and teaching real knowledge. I talk to people. Everybody has their own little nuggets of knowledge that they have because they were interested in military history, or they find the idea of Newton's laws of thermodynamics fascinating, whatever that might be. And I talk to people and pick up what they have, which is what gives me my wide-ranging understanding of most of the basic concepts.
The kids have a voice of their own. I mean, they can say stuff too. I mean, there are kids that can fire teachers. So, pretty cool system, actually.
In general, students are not graded. They don't take tests. There is no mandatory attendance. Children choose what they want to learn and when they want to learn it. They spend more time in art and play. At the beginning of the semester, there's usually a list of classes covering all sorts of subjects, from bike repair to German. Students pick their courses and go to the classes when they want. What is counterintuitive to most of us is that these children turn out just fine. On standardized tests, they perform just as well as public schools, and most of them move on to college.
So I learned how to read when I was 9, because I started when I was like 7, and I would like read Bob books. I just got jealous of my sister because she learned how to read when she was 6, and I wanted to learn how to read because she learned how to read, and never really took tests. Like, my tests for reading was starting to read like a book that I wanted to read. If I could read it, that was a good thing. If I couldn't, that was a bad thing, If I could read the whole book through without any help, then, it's kind of like a test, I don't know. You have your own, you can do it in your own time, I guess you have to say.
I've taken some math. I've taken social studies, and I'm thinking about taking some Spanish. My mom wants me to learn Spanish so I can be the translator. I've been to Bolivia. Math, well, I remember when I first started, I was like about 5 maybe, and I started like my plus tables, and I was like, whoa, this is really hard. Now I'm getting into the algebra. It's like, jeez. Sometimes I do it twice a week, sometimes I do it 3 times a week. So, yeah. I can pretty much stop and go whenever I want. So, it's pretty simple. Typically I do it for an hour.